Alright, so I wanted to talk about my experience with Mephedrone, also known as 4-MMC or MCAT or Meow Meow. I never actually heard anyone call it Meow Meow in real life, but it's often referred to as that in like the Daily Mail and stuff like that. It's a synthetic stimulant which was briefly legal, I think, almost everywhere, really. Certainly in pretty much all of Europe, and I think in America for a while. And now it's illegal basically everywhere. I think, in fact, everywhere, more or less. So when I was younger, me and my friends used to smoke a lot of weed, and we were really against the idea of doing hard drugs. We thought it was really bad, and it's kind of like looked down on people that did it. And we were pretty heavily addicted to weed. We used to smoke a lot, and I remember then suddenly we started hearing like sort of talk of this stuff, and at the time it was referred to as bubbly in the town I was from, and we just started hearing about it, and like it was this like mysterious substance, and it was kind of, because it was legal, it kind of sounded different. Like we kind of viewed it in a different light to how we viewed like cocaine and MDMA and stuff like that. And yeah, we'd heard vaguely, I think there were like some older people like had done it, and we were sort of hearing like secondhand information that this stuff was like amazing, and you know, people had done it and said it was like the best feeling they'd ever felt, and that like it was fine, and also just, you know, it was just interesting because it was legal. But we were all pretty like afraid to do it, I think, and also it wasn't really part of our social circle at that point. And then after a night out, like we heard that one of our friends had like gone to someone's house and tried some of it, like a tiny bit, and it just basically like more and more it started to kind of sort of enter our world like very slowly. Like we heard, you know, this guy that we were friends with, like he tried a bit of it and he said it was fun. And oh yeah, one time we went to buy weed off this guy who was in the year above us, and he was acting really weird, and he was being so nice to us, and he was like, man, I'm having that bubbly stuff, have you tried it? And we were like, no. And he was like, man, it's the fucking best thing ever, man, you guys are alright, you know, like you guys are sound, yeah, you should try it. And he was normally quite unfriendly, and he was being like really nice to us, and he started just saying how amazing it felt and stuff, and still I think all of us were a bit like, oh, it sounds kind of weird, like it sounds a bit much for us, you know. Anyway, we ended up deciding like, let's like, I guess we all kind of just became like, you know, curious enough about it, because people just kept saying it was so fucking amazing and shit. And so we decided to, and at this point it was growing in popularity quite rapidly, and it was so cheap. It was like, if you bought it in bulk, I think you could get it for like £7 a gram, like 7 sterling, so it'd be like, you know, like probably like less than $5 a gram if you bought it in bulk. But that would be, you know, large bulk, but you could easily get it for like 10 quid a gram, so like $7 or $8 a gram or whatever. And I remember I was at this guy's house and decided to try it, and all my life I was certain, I was like, I would never snort anything, which is kind of funny in hindsight now because I've snorted so much. But I was adamant. Like I remember I was like reading about it in books when I was younger, and I was just like, how the fuck can anyone do that? Like how can anyone just put something up their nose like that? Like, a lot of people are freaked out by syringes. I'm not really that bothered about syringes, but to me the idea of sniffing powder into your nose just sounded so fucking disgusting. Like, I just couldn't believe anyone would do that, and I thought I'd never do it. So even when it came to trying it, like I was like, is there any other way I can do it? Like, can I smoke it or something, or can I just, you know, like whatever? And they were just like, shut up, like just fucking snort it. And I kept being like, seriously, give me a tiny bit, like really, just give me like the tiniest bit, okay? Like, and I was so fucking scared to try it, and because you know all I'd done was weed and alcohol at this point, and yeah, which is kind of funny because alcohol is no joke really, and like it's kind of crazy that. Yeah, we were so like naive on the one hand and so terrified of doing drugs, but like we're quite regularly drinking, and alcohol is so fucking like, it can potentially so destructive, you know. It's kind of crazy that is like that's seen as a step below, you know, stuff like this. Although, to be fair, I mean, alcohol didn't have as much of a bad impact on our lives as this ended up having. But yeah, so they did me like a tiny line of it, and I had it, and like it was like about a minute passed, and then I was suddenly like, oh, okay, like almost immediately I could feel it. And still to this day, it's probably the best feeling I've ever had from drugs, like the first time doing that, because I guess my I hadn't like destroyed my brain yet. I hadn't depleted it of all the fucking necessary chemicals to like feel good. And yeah, I just remember like I started feeling it, and I was like, yeah, I think this is quite nice actually, isn't it? And they were like, yeah, like, because they were obviously, the people I was with were like more experienced at doing stuff like this. They'd been doing like pills and stuff in the past, and I was like, shit, yeah, I think I like this. I think this might be like the best thing ever. And they were like, yeah. And I was like, can I have some more? And then like they gave me a bit more. And then it started fully kicking in. And I remember like it felt so good. I've not seen anyone else really have this reaction to it, but it felt so good. Like I got like really comfy in this armchair, and I remember I was just sitting like this, and I was like, I just didn't want to move. It felt so good just to sit, like the chair against me and stuff, and it felt really nice just to talk like out of the side of my mouth, and I was just sitting and I was just kind of saying stuff to people. I was like, man, yeah, I know we're not really like friends normally, but I think you're such a cool guy, man. What's your favourite movie? And just like complete bollocks, like just chatting utter shit. Like someone would, you know, go over to get a glass of water, and I'd be like, are you getting a glass of water? It's sick, man. I hope you enjoy it. I hope it's a really good glass of water, man. Thanks so much for having me at your house. It's so good, man. It's the best I've ever felt. Like, even all the other people who were fucked were like, this guy is fucking weird. And people were saying to me, like, they were like, don't you want to like fucking get up and move around and like dance? I was like, no, man, just this chair feels so good to me. I don't want to leave the chair. This is the best feeling I've ever felt. I think that was like the day I became a fucking druggie. Like, I was like soaking up the feeling so much. I just I so often felt so anxious and so bad and so unhappy, and this just instantly changed all of that, and suddenly everything was nice and everything felt amazing, and life was the way, like, you know, that I wanted it to be, and I was happy with everything, and I didn't care about anything. And it's hard to tell people not to do that. You know, it's hard to discourage someone from sort of going after that feeling, because it's so enticing. Like, I'm not saying that people should never feel like that, or that people shouldn't do, like, you know, like hard drugs, whatever you put in that category, ever, or anything like that. I'm not even, you know. But yeah, still, like, it's still, you know, it's so it's like Louis C.K. has a bit about how, like, you have to like lie to your kids or something, because you can't just tell them, like, I can't remember exactly the way he says it, but like basically like drugs will like solve all your problems, and it's not his most perfectly worded bit, 'cause it doesn't entirely make sense, but I guess he sort of means, like, you know, in the short term, the immediate effect is that they'll basically solve all your problems, and it's quite hard to tell someone not to do that. So yeah, I fucking loved it, and did that for the rest of the night, and I think I went to school the next day. I can't remember. And then I'd like told my friends I'd done it, and I think another one of them had done it at this point, and then all of us, it was like, all right, we all have to do it now, like, and everyone then, you know, decided to do it. And yeah, we lived in this small town. It's a population of like 10 or 15,000 people, and there were a couple of people that lived outside of the town, and like a couple of our friends, you know, a group of friends that lived outside of the town, and then 3 of us that lived directly in the centre. And us 3 were like the worst, definitely, with it, because we were always around and always available. So even on a school night, we could just like go out and do it. And yeah, at first it was generally weekends and stuff, and like we very, very quickly got very into it. And again, it was so cheap. Like it was kind of like cheaper than weed in a way. It was crazy. And we just were like, this is just the best thing in the world. Like, this is just like, the feeling of it is fucking incredible, to be fair. Like, I don't want to encourage anyone to do it. Like, again, I'm not saying like no one should ever do these things or anything. I'm not trying to be all fucking, you know, talk to Frank about it or whatever. But yeah, no, the feeling of it was incredible. Not overall, definitely not worth it, like in terms of, you know, the effect it had on my life overall. But the feeling, oh man, because it's like, from what I remember, it's like a cross between MDMA and cocaine. Like, so you get this like immediate kind of like gratification feeling that you get from cocaine, and then you just get this like contentedness and euphoria from MDMA. And maybe it was just because it was the first hard drug I ever did, but I don't remember anything ever really feeling quite that powerful or good. I've done quite a lot of stuff since then, and like, yeah, it felt incredible, and I guess it was so pure as well, and we were having so much of it, and the lines you take of this stuff are so fucking big, and it's like a crystal substance, so it fucks your nose up like completely. Like, I saw horrible things happening to people's noses on it, and a lot of horrible stories, and people just like gushing blood and stuff, and like, yeah, just like blowing out massive fucking balls of like blood and snot, and like, you can. What's funny is you can very easily crush it into a fine powder. You just need some like glossy paper, and you just whatever, and you fucking, yeah. But we were all too stupid to do that. So we used to just fucking sniff it in its crystal form, and it's like shards of, oh man, it burned so fucking much. But you then get addicted to that because it's like with coffee. Like, fucking coffee doesn't taste nice. Get a grip. Like, coffee tastes disgusting. People like coffee because their body associates it with caffeine. It's the same thing, but on a much larger scale. It doesn't feel nice to have some like crystal substance burning your nose, but when every time you do that you get like the most amazing high ever, then yeah, it does start to feel fucking nice to have your nose burning like that. And from then on I always really liked the feeling of like my nose burning from drugs, not like if I got like chili in there or something. Not that that's happened as far as I can remember. That has happened actually, yeah. Anyway, yeah, fucking what am I saying? Yeah. So, yeah, we started doing it all the time, and at first it wasn't a huge problem, and it was really weird watching this stuff just spread throughout, like, the town and the school. There were some people who didn't even smoke weed who started doing it. Like, they didn't smoke weed because they thought it was bad, you know, like, they didn't want to smoke weed. They were, like, good kids and stuff, and, like, they cared about school, and, like, and they were doing it. It became so normal. Like, these are people who never would have done pills and stuff, like that. It reached people that you never, because it was legal again, and it was just like, it just became so commonplace. And so as we were doing it more and more, we were noticing, yeah, more and more people were doing it, and most people didn't develop the problems with it that we eventually did, or that some of us eventually did. But yeah, basically, you know, I guess in stereotypical fashion, it just became more and more addictive, and our lives centered around it more and more. It was pretty hard to think about anything else, and we were starting to become very depressed, and we were still smoking a lot of weed at this point, and it was like harder and harder to afford everything. And, you know, often we wouldn't have any weed, and then we'd have come downs, and we really wanted weed for the come down, and it was like really hard to find, and, you know, we'd be like looking around on the floor for fucking crumbs of weed and like fucking fighting over it and shit, and like it was just really just became grubby. And moreover, it was like, initially it had this weirdly positive effect on us socially in the same way stuff like MDMA can, although I feel MDMA, maybe it's just the age that I tried it at, I feel MDMA induces a bit more sincerity than Mephedrone. One sec. Yeah, I feel the kind of like sort of talking shit component of MDMA is it does usually come from a bit more of a place of sincerity. I don't know. Generally, that was more so the case in my life. But with Mephedrone, you just like want to just say nice things to whoever's there, even if you don't like them in real life, and you just like say anything just to fucking have some like positive interaction with this person, and you sort of talk bollocks. And we were very like, my group of friends, we were like more like that than than most people. It was like, because we were like, and also we were teenagers, and it was like really over the top. The conversations we had, like if there was footage of it, if there were like videos of it, I would find it hard to watch. I think genuinely, like, and I'm not really like that, but I think I would honestly find it difficult to look at the screen if there were videos of the conversations we used to have. They'd just be so embarrassing. It would be funny, but it would also be like so embarrassing to hear the things we used to say to each other. And the whole point of the night was just like snort mephedrone all night and just like kiss each other's asses, like, and just say like bullshit and fucking wank each other's egos off, and like just like it, like I say, at first it was kind of nice, you know. It was like we were able to like come out of ourselves a bit, and some of us would like talk about things we never normally spoke about or were too embarrassed to speak about, and it was cool. And we could like talk about, you know, bad situations we had going on in our lives or insecurities or whatever else, and that's good. I think that's one of the good things about like euphoric drugs and stuff, is like, you know, they allow you to do that. But sometimes you say things you don't want to say as well. There were incidents of people saying things that I think they really regretted saying, like telling people embarrassing things that they like. I did that a couple of times as well. I said things I was like, you know, the following weeks I'd be like, I can't believe I fucking told people that. It's like, you know, I wish I could take it back, kind of. And we're pretty out of control on it. Yeah, and then it started to get the atmosphere started to get very like unpleasant, and there were times like I remember this guy we knew who sold loads of it, and like he left his bag at this guy's house with all of it in, and I was like, I had become very like grubby, and I was like, we should fucking like have some, you know, because we've run out, like we should just have some of his. And they were like, no, that's his, like he's our friend. And I was like, yeah, we'll just they were saying he's going to weigh it, and I was like, yeah, you have paracetamol though, don't you? So we can crush up some paracetamol and fucking mix it in. And they were like, and like everyone was so dead. It was so fiendish, this drug. Like you get so depressed when you'd come down that I think they all just like caved in and were like, yeah, fuck it. And obviously paracetamol crushed up does not look like mephedrone, so I think it was obvious. But the worst part was they all fucking blamed me for it. It was like, well, it was my idea, obviously, but they all did it, you know. It was all fucking 3 or 4 of us or whatever it was. But more and more things like that would happen where, yeah, it was like people stealing from each other, or people having really embarrassing incidents with each other. And some people would be like, I'm not going to do it anymore, and then you just like get drunk and you just end up fucking buying it, and it was really, really hard to stay away from. And those were the worst nights, when we'd get really hammered and then do it. You just go fucking berserk. Like it would just be like ridiculous. Like there was one incident with me and this guy, and it was so fucking embarrassing. It was so, at the time it was oh man, it was so embarrassing. We were hammered, right? And I remember in the first part of the night I was being really embarrassing. Like I was like they were in this band, and I kept being like, I was doing my usual like head back in the chair, like just talking to everyone thing, and I was just like, hey, fucking best band in the world, man. I started sincerely, I was going on this rant about how I sincerely believed they were the best band in the world and that they were better than Radiohead. I was like, man, fucking better than Radiohead, I mean that from the bottom of my heart. And they were like, yeah, thanks man, thanks. I was going on for fucking hours, like literally, imagine listening to that shit for hours. Like I was just like, I love you guys, I love you so much, you're like my family. And it was, yeah, I remember for that part of the night, I think even whilst on that, people were a bit like, oh fucking hell, like I was being a bit weird. But then this other guy, the guy whose birthday it was, he just went to another planet at some point. And I remember me and him were having like, you know, these are really over the top friendly conversations, and then he was like, come on man, like, you know, calling me over for like a hug or whatever, and I went and sat next to him, and he was like putting his arm around me, and I was always a bit uncomfortable with stuff like that, like physical contact with, not with strangers, but like, you know what I mean, like, yeah, just like I was always a bit weird about it. And but I was like, yeah, whatever. And then he was telling me all this stuff, and he was like, I love you so much, man, you're the best. And then I don't know, I was kind of going in and out of like, not in and out of consciousness, but my memory really started to get like, and I kind of was going in and out of consciousness. Like I remember I was like my eyes were rolling up into my head and shit, and I was like not fully aware of what was going on. And he definitely wasn't, because it was his birthday, so he was so drunk and doing loads of Mephedrone, and everyone was giving him stuff, and he was just like, he was like maybe the most fucked I've ever seen anyone like that night. Like, he was just, it was unreal. Like, earlier in the night, like the way he was walking and shit was nuts. It was absolutely nuts. Anyway, so first he's like telling me all this stuff, and then I think, like, because he had a girlfriend at the time, and I think he got confused, and he started to think that, I think this is what happened. I think he started to think that, and I had forgotten all of this until someone jogged my memory the next day, and it was like, it was the worst thing to hear about this. But he started then like sort of like kissing my head and stuff. And I remember I was like thinking like, we were sort of hugging a minute ago, and like, now this is kind of getting a bit like, I don't know what's going on. And then this other guy was across the other side of the room, and he was just kind of looking at us. And I remember like at one point I have this vague memory of like drifting into like consciousness and kind of looking at him like, I wasn't like asking for help. I wasn't like pleading, but there was this, I just remember just like kind of going dead. I was like disassociating a bit, you know, like, and I was just sort of staring at him. And I think some tiny part of me was like, what's going on? Like, why is like he kissing my head? I was looking at this other guy across the room, and he was just kind of like appalled by what he was seeing. And then he was apparently like kissing my neck and stuff. So fucking weird. It's so embarrassing to remember. And it was like, I don't know how long this went on for, but it got like real fucking weird. He was seemingly very confused and like being like extremely like tender with me. And at some point during this, these other guys who were like more experienced with drugs and more like, you know, like, I don't know, they kept themselves together a lot more, and like they really wouldn't have been into like, you know, seeing that. And they came round, and they sort of saw, and I remember being in this really weird, like, demeaning position. It was like I was like a little baby, like, being cuddled by this guy, because he was, like, much bigger than me as well. And I remember, like, looking up at them as they came in and being like, all right, guys. he was, like, rubbing my hair, and, like, back when I had it, you know, and, like, kissing my head and shit. And they were just kind of like, all right. And, like, I don't remember exactly, but I remember they left within probably less than 2 or 3 minutes. I think they were just like, nah, this isn't the place for us to be. Like, this is a bit above our station. Like, whatever's going on with these two is fucking weird. And yeah, I'd kind of forgotten it. And then the next day, this other guy, he was like, you were a disgrace last night. And I was like, what? Oh, I remember at first I was like, don't tell me. Just like, please don't tell me. Please, I just don't even want to know. I couldn't handle the thought of it because I was already on a come down and stuff. And then, I won't say the name of this other guy. We'll just say his name was Tom. It wasn't, but, you know. And he was like, but not as bad as Tom, the guy whose birthday it was. And then I was like, all right, like, what did he do? Tell me. And then in telling me this, he kind of told me the whole thing, and I started remembering it. And I was fucking mortified. You know, people coming around, and he's like fucking kissing my neck and shit. Anyway, I know some people might be like, you know, who cares? Like, yeah, it's fine if people, but like, you know, we're both heterosexual, so it wasn't like, you know, nothing wrong if men wanted to do that to each other, but like, you know, that was against our will, if you know what I mean. Like, it was, yeah. Yeah, anyway, a lot of stuff like that would happen, and a lot of grubby behaviour, and it just gradually got worse and worse. And pretty much all of us just like, especially the 3 of us that live in the centre, just like humiliated ourselves on it frequently. And one guy, like, he just kept having these crazy physical instances. His mouth was always bleeding and stuff, and he was like fucking biting holes in his face and like fucking just going crazy on it. And yeah, then we all decided to stop doing it, and it was kind of successful. We sort of stopped doing it all the time, but it would end up happening again once in a while. And the guy who used to sell it all the time, he was like, I feel bad, he was doing so much because I think he just had constant access to it. And apparently, like, beyond that point, he would, like, even when everyone had kind of stopped doing it, I think he had a lot stockpiled from when it was legal. And apparently he would just sit at home watching movies and doing it, and the thought of that was like chilling to me, because I'd never gotten to that point. I had done it on my own once, actually, because we had to order a batch for a party, and it was ordered Well, let's just say I think it was legal anyway, but just allegedly it was ordered to my house in a comedy sketch, um, and I was doing it at home, and I was like, it was just like a normal, it was like a weeknight or something. I was doing something at home. I was like playing Call of Duty, and I was like, this is fucking horrible, man. I'm just like killing people and shit. This fucking stinks. I don't think I even was anyway. I think I was playing very badly. And then I went down and I was like hanging out with my mum, and she was just looking at me like, what the fuck is wrong with you? Like, why are you being like this? And I just went upstairs and I was like, yeah, I don't think I should do this at home. But anyway, yeah. So like generally, we didn't really do it on our own. And a few people basically, like after it kind of faded in popularity, like a few people, and a lot of people lost friends. The whole town just went fucking nuts over it basically, and a lot of people fell out with each other. And we also like a lot of people would get involved with each other that wouldn't normally be, and you just like, and it just got all of us into like hard drugs in general, and just like it was a very negative thing overall, really. Because that quality of being able to like talk about your insecurities and all this stuff, like that is something that we should be encouraging as much as possible anyway in society. I think like we should be much further along with that than we are, I think. But it's just one of the downsides of like a status driven society, I think, is you don't want to tell people you're doing badly because it's just embarrassing. And like probably on some level people will be happy to hear that you're doing badly, and that you're failing in life or whatever. Like people kind of like when other people do badly, if we're being honest, like, and not across the board, not all the time, but like obviously, I'm sure you know that feeling like of like thinking like, yeah, people probably think like if I try to get this job and I fail, or I try to do this and it doesn't work, like people will probably find it funny, because it elevates their own status as well. And if you do really well, in their mind it diminishes their status. And yeah, I think that's why it's hard for people to talk about their problems for the most part. Like I don't think it's because of that much of like stigmas around specific things, because there's not really that many, like unless you're like a fucking rapist or something, like there's not any, you know what I mean? Like most things you can tell people, like they're not things that you're not allowed to say. And like I don't actually think there's specific stigmas around specific things. I think pretty much all of it is like status based, really. Like you just think people will look down on you and see you as lesser, but it's not necessarily because of the thing itself, if that makes any sense. I don't know. So yeah, all the positives of it I think can be had elsewhere in other ways, or should be encouraged more. And I think we have a lot of progress to make in that regard, because we're making a lot of progress in a lot of ways, but socially I don't know anymore if we're making that much progress socially as a society. I think in a lot of ways, clearly we're going backwards socially. And in some ways we're just not moving very fast, and it's unfortunate because we could be at a point now where life could be pretty cool, like, and we could be quite supportive and accepting of each other, without needing like fucking drugs. Again, not saying people shouldn't do them, but I'm just saying like we don't have to have them for that. So anyway, it became pretty bad. And then it became illegal and it was much harder to get. And nowadays there's like occasionally there's rumours of like, oh, there's really pure Mephedrone going around somewhere or whatever. But generally it's like less and less pure. And most people would agree like it doesn't feel the same as it did pre-ban. And I haven't had it for years. I tried a while back. I tried getting hold of it quite a few times and I never could. I always really wanted to, but I couldn't, and now like I don't care, I'm not really particularly interested in doing so. I wouldn't advise anyone to try it, like, and also I mean it doesn't really exist anyway in its original form, so it's pointless. Well, not pointless, but I just don't think it's I don't think it's necessary to try. And if you wanted to have those experiences of like feeling really euphoric and being able to open up and things, then I think it MDMA and things like that are obviously better options in that regard. Anything else? Can't remember. I'm trying to remember some of the worst incidents with it, but I can't remember them. No, I don't know. But yeah, anyway, if you had any weird experiences with mephedrone or just mephedrone experiences in general, it'd be interesting to hear about them in the comments. Sorry again, this video is so dark, but I'm not putting the fucking bright lights on when I'm about to go to bed. So sometimes videos are just going to be really low quality and fucking dark. I might start using my phone camera soon, because this shit is a little bit ridiculous, really, isn't it? But yeah. Anyway, yeah, I'll do more of these on other drugs. Talking about other drugs, not on them. Yeah. So, yeah, cool. Take care.